And welcome to this week's edition of Tiger Sports Live Breakdown.
I guess I'm your host, Scott Barrett, and we got Brian Babcock here as our deep surgical color guy. Week number 2 on the Breakdown podcast, and Jigs, good to see you. And here we are, week 3, regional semifinal. But last week was kind of fun too at Liberty Benton.
Yeah, it was. It was a good matchup. Obviously, Liberty Benton's offense showed some things, both pass game and run game, and tested the Liberty Center defense. Had a couple nice drives. Liberty Center's defense bent a little bit, did not break, did not give up a touchdown. Created quite a few turnovers. Turned, what did we have, 3 picks, I believe, last week.
Yeah, 3 picks, a couple fumbles, and 2 bad snaps on punts. I mean, that's Liberty Benton's MO was a little leaky, a little sloppy with the football, and they delivered on that a little bit last week.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that Liberty Center puts you in positions where offense becomes hard at times, and certainly we get great production out of our corners. Interception game, Garrison Cruz with a big interception on the goal line last week there as well. So good overall showing from our defense, and offensively the run game got going. The second half there, and the offensive line started enforcing their will, and certainly big night from Waylon Rentz, Garrison Cruz, and proved dominant there towards the end.
I going into that Liberty Benton matchup, I did feel like they had some size up front, but then when you saw them in the pregame, we talked about it. I mean, maybe they weren't as big as Patrick Henry. I think Patrick Henry certainly added a lot of size, and they were very good in that size. They were athletic. And it, not just run stuffers. Those kids could really move gap to gap at PH, and I didn't think Liberty Benton had that on either side of the ball. And I really liked the way Liberty Center handled inside run. I really felt like they had the kind of players that could create explosives if we didn't control the line of scrimmage. I think that has been the story for Liberty Center football all year long, has been a dominant line of scrimmage play. I mean, our line of scrimmage play has been phenomenal, and going into this regional semifinal at Maumee against one heck of an Oak Harbor team, I think we're the best scoring defense in our division. I think we're the number 2 scoring defense in the state of Ohio. And I think defensively, I think that really matters. In Division 6, we just have been so dominant defensively. But I think the key has been, and I hate to say that in a way, that there has been a lot of non-tests on this schedule. And we were talking a little bit before we got on air with Philly Snow and with you, Brian, that I really get more focused on quality opponent, and I like to kind of get to those numbers, because like the Patrick Henry game for us was really something. If you look at Oak Harbor and what they did this season, they did the same thing we did. They just annihilated people.
Mm-hmm.
And this, the differences in scoring in terms of total points and total points given up, very similar. But they got into a shootout against Eastwood, a conference foe with the Northern Buckeye Conference. And I just feel like, both teams look very similar in the way they like to handle you. Both teams are power run. Oak Harbor does it differently. Plays a power spread. We've talked about Michael Lalonde a lot, and again in the pre-pod, we're talking to Phil Snow a little bit about that. When you and I certainly discussed it, Lalonde is a weapon in a lot of different ways, but they've got complementary players that are equally as good. But both teams, Oak Harbor, Liberty Center, and I'll give you a little preview, and then we'll get on to it. Oak Harbor is 12-0. They've scored 44.2 points a game. They've only given up 8.7. And they've got a strength of schedule at 62, which compares to Liberty. Liberty Center 12-0, 43.8 a game, giving up 3.5 on defense, and they're number 57. Liberty, I guess, finished 3rd in the AP, because I think Ironton and South Range were tied for number 1.
Mm-hmm.
And this Region 18 just continues to deliver, because Oak Harbor obviously finished the season ranked in the AP as well, as did Milan Edison. And Eastwood was hanging around. I mean, there's this Liberty Benton was, I think, at 13 or 12. We talked about that last week. A lot of ranked teams in this region. This is loaded to the gills. And not that South Range or Ironton aren't going to be a handful, whoever gets them, but there'll be enough tests in this region. And we're seeing it this week against Oak Harbor at Maumee. And we want to talk about Oak Harbor, but maybe, and you brought this up a little bit yesterday in kind of our pre-production conversation, but last year's game, coaches like to look at prior year's film. How did we do, and how did we defend, and how did we play, and all these things. And that game last year was phenomenal. I think it was 45-12. I think was the final or something. And I looked at that too when you did. And there were a couple takeaways I had. But what were your big takeaways from the Liberty Oak Harbor game last year at Clay?
Yeah, I thought offensively for Liberty, the keys came out strong. Landon Amstutz throwing the football
Huge.
to Landon Cruz, and we had some big down the field shots that really opened up the run game for Liberty Center. And we had some struggles early running inside. If you remember, they had a big fella on the nose. I think he's almost 300-pounder. That was tough to move. Struggled to run the ball inside, but then we kind of got the run game going to the outside. Some of these toss sweeps, powers, where you're getting multiple backs coming through a hole blocking, and that proved it to kind of get that was what we ended up going to, and was very successful. And then we started getting some gash runs. And once again, the timely passing game was very important. That's what stood out offensively. Defensively, they had two weapons on the outside. One was kind of a high jump champion. I think he might have won state, but he was tough to reel in on the outside. Got a couple big plays on us. He is no longer there. Number 7 last year in the slot they would give him the ball out of the backfield, try to get him in space. He was tough to handle as well, but I think their offense last year looks a little bit different than their offense this year. I think they passed it a little bit more, less power run. I feel like they're more power run, quarterback run this year versus last year.
I was looking at this a little bit last year too, and those are the takeaways I know you had when we discussed this. Landon Amstutz last year was 10 of 15 for $195 and got a bunch of explosives in the passing game.
Mm-hmm.
And if you've watched this version of Liberty Center, as we have very closely, we don't have those explosives in this passing game. And that's not to be critical of Grady, and it's not to be critical of, our quarterback situation. It's just not who we are. This Liberty Center team to me looks way more like the end of Rex Lindgren's career, or maybe somewhere in the middle where we were so fullback reliant. It was 30 and 40 carries to the fullback powers and traps. So Landon, when we needed it, because Oak Harbor really stood up to us offensively early, and I think gave us as good of a game in the trenches in that first quarter and a half as we've seen. But, those connections he made with Landon Cruz were just so timely and important, and then they had to change a lot of what they did in the secondary. They weren't bringing that safety down. They were more, there was more yards of flex and a little bit more, sensitivity. And we went down the field. Landon Amstutz threw the ball down the field, and Landon Cruz had as good of a night of a receiver as I've ever seen. Some of the catches he was making,
back shoulder.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, they were.
Later
impressive.
later in the playoff run, Landon had some tougher moments where he had dropped balls and different. That game, Oak Harbor to me cemented him as an extraordinarily clutch wide receiver. Beyond that, I think once those plays popped, Liberty then got space. And as good as our offensive line has been blocking downfield this year, it was just as good last year, and really created tons of explosives in the run game, and specifically the inside run game.
Mm-hmm.
Last week, I thought Liberty Benton did some good things in the middle of the field early in the game, and we had to get off tackle, and we had to get better in the run game. Our answer last year to Oak Harbor was throw the ball and throw it down the field, not even in a controlled way. We had vertical throwing down the numbers and throwing down the sideline. It was remarkably great what Landon Amstutz did. But this year it was a little run tweak, and the off power really opened up, and the blocking execution against Liberty Benton was fantastic. So this Oak Harbor Liberty Center matchup to me is really different than last year. To your point, this Oak Harbor team likes to run power out of the spread. And Liberty Center lacks what I would consider an explosive passing game, even though the weapons are there. So it creates a little bit different personality for this game, Brian.
Yeah, and I think the key offensively this year is going to be that timely pass game. I mean, we're going to have to hit some shots. I'm not saying shots down
We're
the field.
Averaging 7 throws a game and maybe a little under. Last week, 1 for 2 for 2 yards.
Yeah.
That's tough.
Yeah, it might be the it might be the 12 to 15 passes like we saw last year. That might be what's going to happen here this week to kind of open that up. And it doesn't have to be down the field. It doesn't have to be on the sidelines. It could be the tight end. It can be we saw Garrison Cruz out of the wing quite a bit on, a 10, 15-yard kind of curl, little zero. So I think that's going to be critical. The other thing is we saw a little bit last week, Grady Miller on the power keep. I think that's another thing that's going to have to be in
one of your
play
specialties.
Here. Yeah,
I was talking about
put it
that
on the
was
hip
you.
and
You
go.
did, those hands, they weren't that big, Brian. I mean, and you certainly didn't play quarterback at Ohio Dominican. You were a strong safety,
right.
just looking to blow people up. But that was a thing that you did in those 04, 05. I mean, you were a keep guy because you could really run it. And man, that is hard to be disciplined on a quarterback keep. I thought that was a great offensive call. I think Ryan Miller and Casey Muller, I'm sure, together said that's open because number 27, one of the little slot corner, was still looking inside run, and Grady's just in the end zone. I'm like, boy, they were so keyed to inside run.
Yep.
That keep was huge.
Yeah, it was beautiful. And the other thing you can do with that, sure, you can put it and keep it on the outside, but you can also you let that fullback lead up.
Oh yeah.
On the power game, and we did quite a bit of that back in my career, and against Delta, we did that some, but it just gets you an extra blocker kind of leading up on those power keeps. So you have essentially your right side, left side of the line. You got a wing, you got a halfback and fullback. 3 more blockers coming through there where the quarterback can kind of power up through there. So I think that'll be a key little nuance here this week. I'd like to see Grady get 4, 5, 6, 7.
I like
carries.
I like the power keep too because it just makes outside linebackers and strong safeties that are lining up against the wing or the tight end, they've got to honor that.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not just crashing the 4-5
Yep.
hole. That power, and you don't need a lot there.
No.
You that 4-5 power. You need a couple blocks, an explosive kind of burst to the second level, and now the game is on. Where they're just keying 4-5 hole. I think that keep was a brilliant call, and I think we say that we're spending a lot of time on it, but I don't know. Oak Harbor's well coached. Mike May in the 17th season, 103-66, took over for Gary Quizna, who was a legend, Hall of Famer. I think the program went into a little bit of a transition. He has won 3 consecutive Northern Buckeye conferences. This team is 12-0, and it's a phenomenal team. They were very good last year, Brian. So 3-peat in the Northern Buckeye Conference. They returned 14 seniors. I think that is an absolutely important key for our fan base to understand. 14 seniors and 24 letter winners. They all went through this game last year, and it was physical, kind of nasty.
Yeah, it was.
This game got a little nasty.
Yep.
And we like that. We like that nasty football. And Oak Harbor, I found out that they like it too.
Mm-hmm.
And I know when I was playing, and we went 0-10 my freshman year, and we went 3-7, and it was our time. We were mean and nasty, and Rex Linger had us on an edge, and it was payback time. We were going to spend 2 years paying everybody back. And I'm just telling you that I think Mike May is kind of built that way. That post-game handshake, it was all nice, it was good. But you've been in those games where you got beat up pretty good, and you were a little surly.
Yeah.
This Oak Harbor team, the way they played this season, it looks like they're ready to go here.
Yeah, it does. It does. And the front 7 on defense and also their offensive line, I think that's been the most impressive piece for me as I watch film is, they're more of a, like you say, a zone blocking run scheme on offense, but I mean, there's some big holes that are being made, and they are bullying people, and there's a wave on that offensive line when you watch it. And defensively, the front 7, I think, is probably the strength of this team. Reminds me a little bit of Patrick Henry's front 7, where they got 2 big run stuffers inside. They got a very dynamic defensive end at number 58, Jacob Reidner. So very explosive defensive line, and then they got 2 linebackers that really flow to the football, and number 5, Carson Reidner, and number 11, Brady Losey. So this is a good football team from front 7 defensively and then offensive line.
Another thing I'd like to bring a little attention to, I think that gets a little attention, we're playing rosters of 37 kids and 39 kids and 41 kids, and we see a roster of 52, and you're like, man, Liberty's bringing 72 and you got 52. I like that number. Oak Harbor brings 68 kids into this game. Depth is not an issue for Oak Harbor. I think that's been a massive advantage.
Yeah.
I think it was a massive advantage last week. as you saw, we started wearing them down, pushing them around. The line of scrimmage became our domain. I think that has a lot to do with a 72, 73-man roster. Oak Harbor matches that with 68. That is the biggest roster that we've seen in 2 years. You're talking about 7 returners on defense, 6 on offense. I love that 14 seniors. I do think, however, I like them on film. I mean, they're hard not to like. I mean, they really move people, and they get right to it. Jacob Reidner, I think, is how we're going to say his name. It could be Ridner, but I think it's Jacob Reidner. Has been all Ohio as a sophomore and as a junior. He is a senior. He is 6 foot, 215 pounds, and plays with violence and speed. He is a difficult man to handle. And I think this 4-4 that we're going to see this week, I think is going to be a very interesting, matchup. We like when the center is not covered. It opens up a 0-1 kind of trap, and we've got Clayton Seelan there doing phenomenal work at center all year. Our guards, Tyler Lay.
Yep.
There's not a better guard in Northwest Ohio playing as good as he is. Stephen Brogan certainly has been great. Max Walker banged up, playing great. Deegan Swigert, we'll see reps in there at times, but that 0-1 hole on a 4-4, I like it a lot. And I think our guys get to second levels. Our tackles get down on linebackers. Brian, talk about a 4-4, how to attack an uncovered center, and I think that's what they're going to want to run. They're going to run man too as well. Talk about how, as a quarterback, and you were a great quarterback in our program, attacking that 4-4 on uncovered center in that 0-1 trap game.
Yeah, it just naturally opens up angles, right?
Yes,
so
it
your
does.
center, either he's going left or he's going right. When you have a defensive tackle that is head up on the center, you don't have a natural angle to block. So you're right. The 0-1 hole makes a lot of sense there. And I think we saw last year them kind of move in different fronts where you'd see more of a five-man front, or they'd bring both outside linebackers up, so you'd almost run like a 6-2 type of look.
And I think we're going to see more of that look.
Yes.
Because we're not throwing it much.
Correct. So last year we hurt them on the outside. So, they moved those 2 outside linebackers to the line of scrimmage. And now they got their 2 very good linebackers back to kind of, I guess, give you another edge rusher or an edge player to compensate for those pitches and the 4 and 5 powers. So, yeah, I think that's going to be some gamesmanship all game, really. And I wouldn't be surprised we see Oak Harbor kind of changing their fronts up and doing some different things to keep us off balance.
Well, you certainly see teams adding guys to the box. There's not at this point a lot of fear in our throwing game. I don't know how many explosives we've had in the passing game. 1. I don't know how many plus 20, plus 30-yard gains in the passing game we've had, that meaning ball in the air, not just yards after catch.
Right.
I think that's an important distinction. People get excited about numbers, but when you're watching, we're not throwing tons of 9 cuts. We're not throwing a lot of balls down man-to-man on the numbers. It's a controlled, play action. And I think when you bring 7, 8, 9 guys, that play action pass becomes very interesting.
Yes.
And Rex Lindgren always loved to see 7, 8, 9. You count those guys in the box, and you're one block away in the second level, and it is big run.
Yeah.
Big run. And Waylon Rentz, Garrison Cruz, capable of home run hitting.
Yep.
With 9 guys in the box. You see, conventional wisdom, like the fans will go, oh my gosh, look at those guys. They're stacking the box. And we would say, yeah, I kind of like that.
Right.
And I think Liberty, you were right. Casey's a brilliant game caller. I see Casey taking advantage. I'll tell you what, I love his second half adjustments. He seems to, when we're struggling, Napoleon, Patrick Henry a little bit, this last week a little bit. It didn't go the way we wanted it to go. Boy, second half, it was 2 changes, a couple of adjustments, no panic, and it looked great. Oak Harbor, they lost 4 of 5 on the offensive line, and they lost 3 of 4 on the defensive line. So this team is heavy on skilled, and I think I don't know yet, because I don't know that I know the state yet, but I think that we have some advantages in the line of scrimmage, and I even think we have advantages against Oak Harbor, who will bring depth, some nasty edge, and I think you're going to see 7, 8, 8.5 in the run game. But I think when you look at their offensive lines, that might not be the biggest strength for Coach May, but they're skilled guys. They're loaded. Quarterback, Michael Lalonde. He is the player of the year in the Northern Buckeye Conference. You also have Jacob Ridner, all Ohio. He is the lineman of the year, and Oak Harbor swept that league. Mm-hmm. They dominated that league for a 3-peat, as I said a minute ago. They were in a brawl with Eastwood, who I think is an outstanding football team.
Playing Edison on the other side of the region right now.
I mean,
this week.
Yeah, and I just feel like these regional semifinals are absolutely loaded. I, in no way, shape, or form, I actually see this going very similar to the Patrick Henry game. Last year, big role. We could do more last year offensively. We put it to PH. Of course, they were going through some transition with the quarterback, and that was a tough week for them, and they weren't quite ready to implement the offense they needed. This year, they were ready. That team, they were ready. They played with an edge. It was a great football game. All of us enjoyed it. It was old school. I think Oak Harbor's in that. When I see Oak Harbor play, I just feel like there's a chip there. When I watch them play and I see their snaps and I see a little extra post-snap, Brian, I see some of those things, and I just feel like, given their skilled guys and given their experience, let's talk about that briefly, and I want to get your feedback on what you think they're going to bring attitude-wise. On the defensive end, I just want to this is a takeaway for senior, junior, 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 senior, 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 junior, senior, junior. No sophomores, no underclassmen, no freshmen, all experienced, ready to roll. This team is loaded with players with lots of snaps.
Yep.
And you were a younger player, and you were a good player, and I think I was a good player, but I was nothing like I was when I was a late junior, senior.
That's right.
Talk about that experience that Oak Harbor brings and getting lit up last year and all that whole thing and what you've seen in their schedule. What's Oak Harbor look like to you when you see all this experience and that edge?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you talk to experienced football players that have been through a program, I think your biggest jumps are from your freshman to your sophomore, and probably your junior to your senior. There's a different mentality that you take as a senior versus a junior. You've been there 4 years. You're playing players that you've probably seen or you've grown up with. You know you're equal as far as physical, or if you've worked harder, maybe a little above equal. So, yeah, I think that is a big factor in this football game. And when you go through a loss that they went through last year, and we ended up dominating that football game late, that puts a little sour taste in your mouth, and you're going to want to come and avenge that loss. So they're going to come in with an attitude, and they got players that have been there. Obviously, last year that were contributing, had a great season thus far, undefeated. So, yeah, they're going to come in ready to go.
Let's talk about Lalonde a little bit more, then we'll kind of get to the end here a little bit. But Lalonde this year has run for 518 yards, 93 of 117 for 17 touchdowns, 1,600 yards. That's 80%, Brian. Now, the snaps that I saw, I don't see a ton of balls being thrown down the field, but
right.
Tyler Thompson is a weapon. He is extremely fast. He's their best receiver, 5'11", 165, can get down the field.
Yep.
Quite frankly, though, as you have said, I love our defensive backs.
Yep.
I trust our back seven. I like what Thomas Muller has done, Jackson Bartels, Sonnenberg. We've had great play from our snipers. I mean, talk about back seven against Lalonde in this skilled group.
Yeah, I think the passing game that you're going to see is more of a lateral passing game. So you're going to see screens out on the edge. They love a 5-yard curl. So they'll go, whether it's
we saw some of this last week against Liberty Benton.
Yes.
Timing curls. It was effective.
Now they're not going to hit you with a slant very often or a fade very often. They don't throw the ball downfield. But he's got a 5-yard curl where he gets the ball out right now, and it's quick and it's efficient. And if it's a 3rd and 5 and you're playing off as a corner, they're going to hit it. So corners have to be ready for the quick passing game. They have recently. You've seen Cam Colley and Grady Miller, obviously, the effectiveness that they've had in getting their hands on the football. So eliminating that quick passing game, I think, is going to be key. The other thing is Michael Lalonde has run the football a lot this year.
Yes, he does.
And they will, quarterback draw him. They will
Inside-
call plays
inside.
inside. He's not
Inside
a big
run.
kid, but he runs hard, and he's quick, and he's really slippery. If you remember in that game last year, he took some shots.
He did.
Trenton Cruz, Colton Cruz, and I'm like, how is that kid getting up? And he kept getting up. So I think the key is going to be continue to put hats on him, continue to hit him. If he wants to run it, let's hit him. And then it becomes a little bit harder to throw, and that's in the back of your mind when you're running the way they run him.
The player of the year in the Northern Buckeye Conference, I've said that a couple times, but he is 5'10", 170, not the biggest guy, but very accurate thrower.
Yeah.
Does not make a lot of mistakes throwing the football. excellent runner. He's very athletic, runs really hard for his size. You're right, really hard. Couple of things to note here as we get close to wrapping up. They run some no huddle. I think that's really important. We like to sub. We got depth. Well, that no huddle eliminates substitutions. I think that's big. They get into rhythm.
Yeah,
their rhythm offense, and I like that. And I think Mike May has added that a little bit more this year. When you look at the snaps, I think I saw 73 snaps. They're running quick 40, 45 times. That's a highly conditioned, high execution kind of offense. We got to be ready. And our guys on the defensive line have been phenomenal. Hunter Spangler, Xander Zeider. We've got Kyler Kern, Goose Giesge,
Kellen Weimer.
Kellen Weimer, who's been a great. I mean, Cifuentes has been in there. Deegan Swigert's been in there. Even Tyler Legg gives you some snaps. These guys are big, heavy-duty run-stuffing guys. These guys aren't maybe what you saw at Navarre and Bachman last year that are maybe high-motor athletes. Not that they're not athletic. They're just a different breed of defensive line. So I think watching hands on hips and the fatigue and some of those pieces, how Nick Miller gets those guys subbed in and out, I think is going to be a big part of this game. The other thing, and I want you to comment on this as a defender, a lot of pre-snap movement. They like to give the defense a lot of different looks.
Yeah.
They trade, they shift. The H-back is strength. He's not strength. He's unbalanced. He's to the weak side, to the strong side, to the field. I mean, they show you a lot.
Yep.
And the discipline it's going to take. That's the Eric Weimers and the Brian Hefflingers and the Ryan Millers and the position coaches digging in. Nick Miller, Todd Spangler. It's digging in those guys. Of course, it's Casey and Matt coordinating offense and defense, but those position coaches teaching those keys to be read. So talk about the no huddle a little bit and talk a little bit about the shifts and trades on the pre-snap.
Yeah, well, you're right. I mean, they really mix it up well. They want to run the football. That is
yes.
that is their main thing. Carson Reitner,
I say good. I like that. Run it.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Number 5, Carson Reitner, probably the best running back that we've seen all year.
Agreed.
I think so. They want to run it first, and from that, the quarterback will keep it. He will throw it to the outside and kind of get that game going. But you're right. The defense is going to have to be ready to go. I think the other factor from the defensive line is get your hands up. Right, I mean the quarterback's not a tall thrower.
Right.
So I've seen a lot of balls getting tipped.
And that's
from
why
the
they want to go
defensive
from the
line
shotgun.
position.
They want to go from the shotgun a little bit to give him some space.
That's
a little
right.
shorter. Right.
In our linebacker blitzers, get your hands up, get in the passing lane. I think that's going to be key. So defense has got to be ready to go, but they want to run first, and they're going to run it, and I think they're going to continue to run it until we stop them.
Well, I'm really comfortable with that. I love our defensive line. We've talked about our line. Spike wants to talk about each unit. I think we've talked about them a lot. We're going to talk about them more, but that front 7 versus our back 7, I don't know that I don't like them more. And I'm really excited about a Hunter Spangler and a Kellen Weimer and a Goose Giesge just holding and no movement, and then those linebackers. I mean, Waylon Rentz is a complete rock star.
Yep.
Reader and filler, and you got the best blitzer and linebacker we've seen in a generation. I mean, you got guys that can really do it all, and Garrison Cruz might be the net best athlete we've got on this football team. Talk a little bit about how we're going to handle that run and how you think our second-level guys are going to help there.
Yeah, I think you just mentioned it. I think Stephen Brogan's going to be interesting if they have somebody kind of shadowing the quarterback, because he can really do a lot of damage.
We will spy that.
And who is that going to be? Is that going to be Garrison Cruz, or will that be Brogan, or we'll keep Brogan more on a blitz, keep him freed up? But you're right. And the snipers are really going to have to play in the run game and the pass game this week. I think there's going to be a lot of pressure because they will run to the outside. And when the play breaks down, the line can get outside and create some problems. So even from the defensive line position, when you're rushing, it's lane integrity. We can't just go crazy and leave big holes, or he will slide inside a defensive end and he will get outside and create some problems.
It says a lot about the attitude of this football team when your senior player of the year, 5'10", 170, is not that big, but he plays.
Oh man, he does.
He plays way bigger, and he's their emotional leader on this football team. As he goes, I think they go a little bit, and he has laid some licks. I mean, he likes to run over people. He doesn't like running outside. He wants to run. He reminds you kind of a mini Waylon Rentz. Waylon's looking for color instead of, Rex Linger would say, look for daylight. Waylon's like, I don't look for daylight. I want to lay a lick on somebody. So I think Michael Lalonde, and I do think Carson Redner, that is a powerful combination, and I'm really a big kind of fan, as we talked about, of Tyler Thompson as well. They've got just enough, but I think at the end of the day, I think we match up really well in our front seven. I think we've had great play. I think even Garber has had a great season. Our snipers are underrated, and I think they've done great tackling in space. I think Garber has been a fantastic tackler in space. I think Grady has been a fantastic tackler in space. I think Cam Colley is a stud for his size. Yep. So that horizontal passing game, I don't fear that as much as maybe last week a little bit, because I don't feel the athletes out there like I think Liberty Benton brought. So if you want to bring this down to a front seven in the box, no matter who's running it, it's all the same hole. I like the advantage Liberty Center has. And as we wrap up here last minute or so, maybe talk about what's going to be key for Liberty Center. And for Oak Harbor to get a win, what does Oak Harbor have to do? For Liberty to get a win, what do they got to do?
Yeah, I think the key for Liberty Center is on offense, timely passing games. We're going to have to pass the football. We're going to have to open up this defense, show some threats.
Yes.
I think that will be the key for Liberty Center on offense. Liberty Center on defense, I think they got to limit Michael Lalonde. That is the key. I think we're okay stopping the run game. The pass game, like you said, it will stress us, but I don't know that we fear it. But Michael Lalonde can get loose, and he can do a lot of things back there. Oak Harbor, offensively, sustain drives. I think they have to drive the football, take error out of the football, limit possessions for Liberty Center, and defensively, well, you got to try to stop the run.
This looks to me a lot like the Liberty PH game. Liberty Center's rolling. We're advantaged here, I think. At the end of the day, I think people of Las Vegas would see us as an advantaged football team here. Oak Harbor has things to prove. This is a game I think they have circled. I think the attitude and the approach of Mike May's group all season, if you watched any film, which I know you have and I have, it's different.
Yeah,
it's a little edgier.
Mm-hmm.
It's a chip. I think these things matter in games like this. Liberty hasn't been in a lot of street brawls, and the one they were in, hey, we were down in the fourth quarter, answered the bell, but the PH game, it was very instructive. I think how Liberty wins this game is they've got to be a better version of Liberty Center. I don't know that we're going to go out and do what Landon Amstutz did last year. I don't think we can take that to the bank. I have confidence that both our quarterbacks can make some completions, but I really think Nick Miller is going to have his best week of his career. I mean, our offensive defensive lines have got to play a notch above, and if we do, we will be able to move this Oak Harbor team. I think it's going to be a short game. I think there's a lot of running, which I think we're going to like, but I think this clock. So the possessions are jewels. I think they're jewels. I think lastly, we got to stop Michael Lalonde.
Mm-hmm.
I think my attention is on number 3. Not that other guys can't hurt you, but I think it starts and stops with 3. Oak Harbor beats us if they can get a couple big plays and can convert, and if they can hold our running game, if they can dedicate and make us throw it. If I'm Oak Harbor, okay, you guys do what you do, now throw it. I don't know that they can really execute there because we're so good up front, Brian, but I think that I would really make our quarterback room win the game. And if they did, you got it. I think Oak Harbor thinks they've got something here. They got a couple great players of the year, all Ohio players. They're 12-0. Friday night in Maumee, Oak Harbor 12-0. They're scoring 44 points a game, only giving up 8.7. Liberty Center 12-0. They're scoring almost 44 points a game. This is a good one. This is. We talk about Mylon Edison. We talk about Mylon Edison. You talk about all these other guys. This is it, right? This is the game of the region in my mind right here. Very good. See you on Maumee on Friday, guys.